Welcome to All Things Policies Special Edition Iran Brief, where we cover the West Asian War. And today we're going to talk about the Pakistan mediation in this ongoing conflict between US and Iran, which is hanging by a very thin thread. I'm Aishwaria Sonavane, research analyst for Pakistan studies at the Takshashila institution. And sitting across the table from me is Mr. Anand Arni, who's a career intelligence officer with the RNAW and a distinguished fellow with the Takshashila institution. In today's episode, in this conflict, there are several moving parts, Mr. Arni, and as we record it on April 23rd, I want to go through a few things and just get the audience up to date with what's happening right now. Pakistan's top military and political leadership is actively working to prevent um, any fallout of talks between the US and Iran before the second round even begins. US President Donald Trump says there is no time frame for ending the war, while the ceasefire remains indefinitely extended. Iran's chief negotiator, and I'll attempt to pronounce his name, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has warned that the reopening of Strait of Hormuz is not possible amid the ongoing violations that it accuses of that the U.S. is violating the ceasefire. Pakistan in this situation, Mr. Arni, remains both anticipated and unanticipated. Anticipated because Pakistan has been in this position. We've seen General Yahya Khan in facilitating talks between China and the U.S. under the Nixon era. It has played a role in the Doha Agreement with the Taliban. So there is a pattern here, but it's also unanticipated because the stakes are much higher now. The conflict has expanded to the region. So when you look at what Pakistan has been able to pull off here, getting both Washington and Tehran to the same side of the table, to the same table of negotiation, and this happened for the first time since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. What's your first instinct? Is this strategic genius or Pakistan just got lucky?
I don't think the first two are really precedents in that sense. I think the China one was more of messaging and providing the suitable cover for allowing Kissinger to go to U.S. Of course, there was to go to China. Of course, there was a it's a very good relationship between the U.S. and Pakistan and China, so that facilitated. But I don't think they had much to do apart from acting as a sort of message forwarding and travel agency. On Doha, largely arm twisted into accepting it. Doha came up as a venue, and it worked for Pakistan. They could get some elements of their some people into the talks, and wasn't much of it was a way for the US to get out of this thing. The mediation wasn't much there. Anyway, we are digressing from this. On getting to this one, it's a sort of it's a plus for Pakistan, definitely. It was also too close to the conflict to stay away, so it did play a fairly decent role. Let's credit them with that in trying to mediate.
And I think when we look at Pakistan's role in the US Iran mediation, we're looking at it from the current conflict of what happened in late February, early March. But Pakistan had its skin in the game much before the conflict even began. I think even us and policymakers in India, when Asim Munir was invited to have lunch with Donald Trump at the White House in June, all of us thought that since it was coming right after Operation Sindoor, it had something to do with India. But Iran and Israel were at war even then. So, are we missing a point here that maybe this conversation or Trump did confide in Munir about this conflict with Iran back when the war first broke out in the summer of 2025? And maybe Pakistan entered this conflict late because it was already preoccupied with a conflict with Afghanistan that broke out exactly around the same time.
I think that will require me to have a crystal ball to say whether there's a linkage there. But let me do say this, that Pakistan did try and cultivate Trump, not just when Trump took over, even preceding that, about 3 to 4 months, they had been working on it as seriously. They seem to have got through to Trump, gave him all the assurances, and he's a transactional animal. He got closer to Pakistan to the extent of calling Asim Munir my favorite air marshal, field
Field
marshal, probably
Marshal.
because he can't pronounce Asim Munir, or it doesn't come to him easily enough. That's one reason. But I don't think that the US would have asked Pakistan to get into the mediation game. I think this flowed after uh, Oman sort of walked back.
Hmm.
Oman sort of threw up its arms and said, "Look, we tried, we didn't." So there was a vacuum, and Pakistan was too close to the
Hmm.
conflict zone, to stay away. It had too many stakes in it. It had Saudi Arabia. If it didn't go well, they would be drawn into it because of the
Hmm.
relationship with Saudi Arabia. It had a relationship with the Gulf countries. It was a Muslim state, and in an area, in a conflict that was being looked at as a attack on Muslim, it had it was one of the larger neighbors of Iran. It was too much in that sort of a thing. I suspect that Sindur, whatever the we can interpret it any which way, but from the Pakistani perspective, they interpreted it as a big win,
Hmm.
and with that confidence went into stepping into this mediation game. They had the contacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think this war was too close to home for Pakistan. If it was, um, it it needs this ceasefire. It has definitely been smart enough to occupy that space because traditional mediators like Qatar and Oman clearly were not as neutral parties in this game. Qatar was seen as pro US, and so I think Pakistan, vacuum kind of made space for Pakistan, and I feel Pakistan also used that opportunity because even now that is a pertinent threat, right? If the ceasefire collapses and the conflict is sort of revived again, Gulf countries are picked up. If Saudi Arabia revokes the security deal with Pakistan, it might not have a choice but to be dragged on to this conflict. And we also saw Pakistan sending its weapons and defense equipment to Saudi Arabia while the talks were ongoing. So I see it as a pressure point to Tehran, that Tehran is aware that the world knows we have this security agreement with Saudi Arabia. So how do you see Pakistan sending their defense equipment, uh, even their troops to Saudi Arabia?
Trying to reassure Saudi Arabia that any attack on Saudi Arabia, they'll be there. They'll be
Hmm.
there. So that was, as you said, a message on both sides. The message was one to Saudi Arabia, but as you said, on Iran, trying to tell Iran that, look, we have stakes in the game. We are close to Saudi Arabia. Let's try and resolve it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that Asim Munir was the only field marshal per se who got a call from Riyadh, Tehran, and Washington in the same week.
Uh,
So that's something that, and we'll come back to Munir in a bit. But again, coming back to Pakistan and Iran and this mediation, Pakistan was firing missiles in Iran just 2 years ago. These strikes also killed 9 Iranians, and now Tehran is okay with having Pakistan as a peacemaker. So how does that work? How do you read this room?
it was a retaliation for something that Iran did, and Iran has a, I can't call it a short fuse, but it reacts because of
Hmm.
the situation it's in. the Jaish Adal, I think it was Jaish Adal,
It was Jaish Adal.
they were
Yeah.
active, getting active, and they were
In
there was a
Balochistan.
camp there, so that the uh, Iranians hit it, and Pakistan just couldn't allow that to happen. So I uh, the preliminary information, well, the unconfirmed information is that they did inform
Hmm.
Iran that we'll have to retaliate, and it was allowed. There was a retaliation. They did retaliate. There was no reaction from Iran after that.
Yeah, also that the de escalation happened really quickly. Um, both sides did clarify that these attacks are against Baloch
Mm.
groups operating on both sides of the Baloch border. Uh, how do you see, what does Munir's consolidated domestic position have to do with its current role in this conflict? Because uh, first we saw Munir come and consolidate his position. Second, there was a Gulf security deal that was signed, and I mean, not to take away the fact that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have had military relationship for decades now. This security deal is something that was publicized or kind of, you know, the entire global community was told that, hey, look, if Saudi Arabia needs security assurances, Pakistan would be there. Then it attacked Kabul and Kandahar, its neighbor. So it, and then it stepped to the international community as a peacemaker. So Munir has had quite a year, not just geopolitically with a conflict with India, a peacemaker here in U.S. Iran, again a conflict with Afghanistan, while also doing what he's doing inside Pakistan. Right? Look at Imran Khan. Imran Khan has been in jail for about 3 years now. It's going to be 3 years in August. So, who is this man, Munir? How do we read him? What do we know about him?
Smarter than when he came out. I think there was a lot of confusion about how to fit him into anybody's frame. There was initial expectation that he is more of an Islamist and all that. But I think he's parlayed it well. He has been in Saudi Arabia, so I presume he speaks Arabic.
Hmm.
He should be fairly good at it because he spent a long time there, and he is not that much of a Islamist as we think he is.
Hmm.
Uh, as you know, that story about his own brother being arrested for
Yeah.
with a traffic accident and being found over the limit. So those are the thing. He's also uh, stories of having well, no, I don't think there's any confirmation, but there have been all sorts of reports in the Pakistan media that he has got a glad eye and things like that. But that happens with every army chief. I'm not sure that you could base your argument on that. Uh, quick to learn, quick to do. I didn't expect that his becoming field marshal would be so easily acceptable. I
Hmm.
expected resistance from the army. Within the army, there was some resistance that here's a sort of a Johnny come lately. How can he assume this thing? Of course, there were other people who said that because of his success in Sindoor, he could. This was flowed from that. Um, I believe, even as we speak, there is some tension within the army,
Hmm.
particularly on the selection of the next ISI chief. I think the other Asim, what is there? The army, the ISI chief
Hmm.
has to be has finished his term, and there is at least one vacancy, four-star vacancy, which has not been filled. Some people say there are two four-star vacancies. I'm not sure of that. I know that there is one on the nuclear side, the four-star thing that is vacant. And every army officer aspires to get that fourth star. So he will face. He hasn't been able to come up with people of his choice who come in position in those places. So he, at the moment, the attention is probably pure totally on Iran,
Hmm.
and Imran is also receded into the background. Let there be some amount of if this situation ever resolves itself, then you could find a different situation emerging. At the moment, I don't think he has much of a. There's no competition within Pakistan. The politicians have fitted into their place. That's most important.
Yeah, I mean the PM and the PMLN, the PPP, this coalition government seems to be stable. Munir has all the support that he needs, and the ISI chief, yes, Asim Malik, they will have to find a replacement for him. I mean, if there's something that I feel that could be a problem for Pakistan, is Pakistan's economic condition if the public is affected by it. Because for everyday Pakistanis, their electricity, their energy needs are way more important than what the Pakistani army is doing in this Iran conflict. But if you think about it, when the conflict began in February and March, there was a lot of apprehension around how Pakistan will be able to meet its energy needs. But when I look at local reports now, they seem to be managing fine. They have managed to stay afloat despite this energy crisis. So, in the immediate term, I think the Pakistani army has managed to show its public that it is its guardian and security provider, and also an establishment that takes care of its foreign policy. So it has managed to win that confidence among Pakistani public. It's sad that Imran Khan. I would say that he has been the most popular man to come out of Pakistan. As a politician, as a cricketer, just I believe there's no one who has enjoyed the kind of fame that Imran Khan has. And today, as he languishes in prison in his 804, that's his prison number. Um, and there's less of concern for Imran Khan. But what I'm curious to also know, just sticking on Munir for a bit, we've spoken about how Munir has managed to create and cultivate this relationship with Trump, be it with crypto deals, and Pakistan has its rentier state tendencies, helps it to kind of move forward. He Munir has managed to build ties with Trump. But what happens when Trump leaves the White House and there's a new president in the room? Where does that leave the relationship between uh, US and Pakistan? Because I think, including me, many of us kind of we wrote off US Pakistan ties after the NATO troops left Afghanistan, the Taliban took over Kabul, and all of us believed there for a moment that the US is not interested in Afghanistan anymore. And this is it for, at least for now, this is it for US Pakistan ties. But we've been proved wrong. At least I've been proved wrong.
I, do, I would think that Asim Munir's immediate problem would be okay, you said Trump, but
Hmm.
that comes after. For the moment, I would think Asim Munir's, uh, even within the country, he's yet to consolidate. He doesn't have that
Hmm.
power. He has been, the fact that he's got so much
Yeah.
attention abroad
His tenure
has
has been extended until
yeah,
2030.
30.
Yeah.
But there's also other problems within the country. Electricity is no thing. There's power cuts every second hour in Pakistan.
Hmm.
This is summer. It's
Hmm.
going to hurt. That's one. Then there's no money. Even if you play around 8 billion coming from here, 3 billion of which you return to UAE, you're still there
Yeah,
with a
there are
begging bowl again.
structural problems with
Yes, yes.
Pakistan's.
And then he has issues on the sectarian front.
Hmm.
Okay, he has managed to come out and say something. But that's because things are going well.
Hmm.
If something happens, there could be sectarian problems. There are two different
Hmm.
sectarian problems. One is in Gilgit-Baltistan in the northern areas, and the other is in Karachi, which is much more violent in a sense. Uh, on the issue of Munir's, okay,
When you say sectarian problems and
Shia Sunni,
Gilgit-Baltistan,
Shia Sunni
20% of the Shia population in
population, yeah,
Pakistan. Yeah.
40 million people, that's not a
Yeah.
small amount. Uh, Pakistan still, okay, there is, has Pakistan moved into identifying itself with the Middle East? That's the question. That's going to be something that you would need to look at more carefully in the future. If it does, then it's a good plus for us. But at the moment, ideologically, I still think that Pakistan looks at itself as India's adversary.
Mm-hmm.
There is no change on that, but maybe getting closer, more involved in issues of the Middle East could bring about some change. I don't see much evidence of that happening, though.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice what has happened in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
uh, the last couple of days there have been a couple of arrests, and
Mm-hmm.
there is a suspicion that the Americans, that the Pakistan has got some sort of a green light from the Americans to go in for some sort of a regime change. I don't say an exact regime change, but
Mm-hmm.
within the Taliban structure to push their favorites ahead. And there is an attempt happening at that. The ceasefire is there, which was mediated by China,
Mm-hmm.
but that's come under some amount of strain.
I'll come back to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I think that's extremely important, and we somehow tend to miss it. I quickly want to also touch on this. Are we kind of not giving enough attention to this army to IRGC relationship between Pakistan and Iran? Because even the IRGC is has a big influence in Iran, and of course, I don't think the Pakistani army is a state in itself, in a state of Pakistan. So, do you think that this back channel talk, this back channel relationship between the Iranian IRGC and Pakistani army, is there something there to that relationship that is also helping Pakistan mediate this conflict, have a relationship with Iran? Is this something that we are missing in the media about this?
They built a relationship. There was some 20 years ago, 99 to 2002, that period, when when the IRGC was deeply involved in the Afghanistan issue,
Mm-hmm.
not in that context of what you were saying, and they were at odds with Pakistan at
Mm-hmm.
that point in time. That relationship has been rebuilt by this thing. I'm not sure that sure Pakistan has worked on multi tracks, building relations with IRGC, building relations with the army, and of course with the leadership. Pezeskian is apparently on a telephone with people. And
Mm-hmm.
as I think I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago, that one of the former uh, ministers had told me that he has the foreign minister Akchi on speed dial and talks to
Mm-hmm.
him. Pakistani minister talks to him at least once in 3 4 days or
Mm-hmm.
exchanges messages. So they have assiduously built up. They don't want to open another front on that side. They've done
Yeah.
it. They've done everything. They've been calculative and it's worked.
And now that you say it, I also think about it. Do you think Pakistan has also learned its lesson from Afghanistan, where we remember the ex ISI chief Fez in Kabul right after the Taliban took over. He's sipping on his chai, coffee with the Taliban administration, and very quickly that kind of fell apart for Pakistan. So that threat of any an unstable Iran that could trigger um, tensions in the Balochistan province. Is that also a motivation for Pakistan for this conflict to end? Of course, energy is something that's affecting everyone, but Balochistan, are we missing something in Balochistan?
It's got number of possible friction points. forget the Shia thing. Of
Mm.
course, you know that Afghanistan has a large Shia
Shia
population.
population, Hazara
Yeah,
population.
the Hazara population, and there are Hazaras in Quetta also, a
Mm.
few Hazaras who have been subjected to a lot of violence in the earlier days, not anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a lot, and that used to be an emotive issue with both Iran and with uh, Afghanistan. That's one aspect, but there are other things with the issues with Iran which could be problematic. The BLA, for Baluchis, for
Mm-hmm.
example, they have a problem with Baluchis, and the Pakistanis also have problem with the Baluchis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, those are the couple of points that I could think of. Uh, Collaboration with on the Baluchi issue is something that seems to be more recent,
Mm-hmm.
and I suspect that things are going fairly well with them on that aspect. Uh, that's generally.
Back in the day, it was routine for US ambassadors to sort of condemn any sort of military dictatorship in Pakistan, and they pushed for democracy and all of this. That doesn't seem to matter anymore. Asim Munir is the favorite field marshal. He's been mentioned in so many tweets by not just US President Trump, but also the Iranian side. Um, and that I think of that because when you mentioned that Pakistan kind of has a green signal to do what it may please in Afghanistan. I was just running a few numbers and just looking at the situation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, uh, which is a peripheral province of Pakistan, and Balochistan. Since the Pakistani airstrikes in Afghanistan, these attacks have gone down. I don't know if this is coincidental. I'm not sure if this is temporary. Is it too soon to say that Pakistan has probably managed to deter Taliban from sort of supporting TTP? Because when these airstrikes happened, all of us thought that the TTP and Taliban, since they've been hit in Kabul and Kandahar, they might retaliate. There would be some sort of retaliation. But we haven't seen any of that. Is this all linked? Has Pakistan managed to deter Afghanistan? That, again, something very different, but something that India can only dream of. But what's happening between Afghanistan and Pakistan here?
Within Afghanistan, there's a lot of tension intra within the larger Taliban grouping. So that I suspect does play a role in this issue. But more importantly, I'm not too sure. Uh, well, what is the Taliban story? The Taliban story is how can we stop what is happening? We are not doing it, but the relationships between the tribes are split. It
Mm-hmm.
says there are tribes, Waziri tribes this side and that side. And most of the thing is taking place in Waziristan, Afridis. We can't. Mehsuds particularly decent. Mehsuds are there in
The
Afghanistan.
TTP,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we can't isolate the two, separate the two. So we are doing our best. Pakistan had at one stage arrived at an understanding with the TTP. The solution had been based on, giving more autonomy, and
Mm-hmm.
a number of the provinces were okay. That the only problem was in South
Autonomy in the
Waziristan,
Khyber Pakhtunkhwa
in the
region,
Fata area,
in the
what we
Fata
call
area.
the
Yeah.
earlier Fata area, except in Waziristan. And in Waziristan, it had was leaning towards a resolution. There were talks
Mm-hmm.
going on, and that was actually at a point when which Faiz Hamid was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So the Afghans have a different view. The Taliban has a different view of Faiz Hamid.
Mm-hmm.
After the ISI, he came as Corps Commander Peshawar and
Right.
carried on this dialogue with the thing. So going into Kabul earlier and sipping a cup of tea was all part of one big story. Uh, they're not too. They say we can't do anything about this. There's a limitation. We can't seal the borders. If Pakistan can't seal the border on their side, how can we do this? Rest assured, there is no official support to the thing. Of course, Pakistan does come apart and say that India is involved and India is financing it.
Mhm.
But there's never been any evidence.
And I think both of us can sit and do a whole new podcast on Afghanistan, Pakistan. So that's another issue that I
That would
would.
be after my heart. But anyway,
And finally, before we end this conversation, I want to talk about India. Um, of course, not looking at how the Indian media is, covering this issue, where it's, again, I wouldn't want to comment on how Indian media is covering this issue, but even among analysts in Delhi and policymakers, we are all thinking, where does this leave us? What does this mean for India, Pakistan? What does this mean for India's position on the global stage? Um, but before we move on to that, I think India's strategy of isolating Pakistan, I would say, has not worked. Back in May 2025, between 2016 to 2025, India's military retaliation has been escalatory in nature. We have not been able to deter Pakistan. Pakistan does not have any reason, intention, motivation to hold back its proxy groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed. The military jihadi complex, as we call at Takshashila, remains intact. But if you had to read India-Pakistan relationship because of how Pakistan is dealing with this conflict, the position that it holds in West Asia right now, what would you say?
I would hold my assessment of the Jaish and the Lashkar for a little longer.
Hmm.
The snows have melted. Let's see if there's any activity. I understand that large parts of the Jaish are been hollowed out, but
Hmm.
you can never be sure. This is a story that Pakistan has frequently tried to push, that the Jaish is out. The Lashkar still exists, and it's much more potent than the Jaish in that sense of the word. But getting back to your original point, I think we always should have a channel with the Pakistanis. You
Hmm.
cannot isolate them, and you you have to deal with them at some level. They are your neighbor. You
Hmm.
have water issues, if you talk about it. You have other issues. You have a civilizational relationship. You have people who understand you better than anybody else in the world, and we understand them better than everything. We should, like, build and try and build up on that. If you have an issue on which you're fighting, that's fine, but keep a relationship going. Talk to them in some fashion. Keep a channel, I mean, back channel, front channel, whatever. Get your the visa policy. Let's get to that. The medical tourism was a great plus for us, and we gave up on that. There are things that we can do. They are short of medical. Let's give them that.
We've spoken about this
Yeah.
to open an emergency medical link because medical there have been some medical ties, but these medicines are going through UAE. Um, yeah, we've spoken about how India's uh, policy of strategic neglect has not worked in New Delhi's favor. We've also seen a precedent where India and Pakistan have always gone back to the negotiating table after big conflicts. At this moment, we don't have any official back channel talks except the DGMO line. We've had about 4 to 5 track two, track 1.5 dialogues. Uh, but yeah, I think after a year of seeing where Pakistan is today and And I don't say this because Pakistan is seemingly in a powerful position. I think this is a very temporary position. Um, Pakistan's domestic issues will catch up to it, and we will go back to regular programming, as we call it. But I think it is, again, and we've spoken about this at Takshashila, that we can have these functional cooperative tracks that India Pakistan can use. And this is something that um, Ambassador Nirupama Rao, Shashi Tharoor, they've all spoken about, advocated for, and
They want trade, for example.
mhm.
Let's look at it. I'm not. I know we've been trying to parlay that by saying give us transit facilities, etc., etc. But in the absence, is there anything? Does it benefit us if we have trade? Does it create a dependency on India,
Mhm.
which can be used in a different sense? But we have to look at all those. In fact, including as you were talking about medical medicine, distance. What's the word? Radio consultations and whatever.
Yeah.
We can do things from India. Uh, we can even. I'm students maybe a little too early for
Hmm.
thing, but there are areas water exchange of data. If you're not officially exchanging, as you had suggested, at least privately try and you had suggested in your paper, privately try and exchange data through universities or some other fashion in that a whole lot of things. And I think this is going to be, you could probably have another podcast session on what things can be done. Not sure it's going to be very popular, but you should try it.
Thank you for tuning in to All Things Policy Special Edition Iran Brief. To stay updated with all our research commentary on the West Asia conflict, please follow Takshashila's West Asia War dossier. Thank you.